It was just a crazy idea to start with, says Ambroise Wonkam, professor of medical genetics at Cape Town University in South Africa.He is talking about his vision of creating a huge library of genetic information about the population of Africa, outlined in the science journal Nature, earlier this year. The 3 Million African Genomes project emerged from his work on how genetic mutations among Africans contribute to conditions like sickle-cell disease and hearing impairments.He points out that African genes hold a wealth of genetic variation, beyond that observed by scientists in Europe and elsewhere. We are all African, but only a small fraction of Africans moved out of Africa, about 20 to 40,000 years ago, and settled in Europe and in Asia, he says. Professor Wonkam is also concerned about equity. Too little of the knowledge and applications from genomics have benefited the global South because of inequalities in healthcare systems, a small local research workforce, and lack of funding, he says.
Only about 2% of the genomes mapped globally are African, and a good proportion of these are African American. This comes from a lack of prioritizing funding, policies and training infrastructure, he says, but it also means the understanding of genetic medicine as a whole is lopsided. Studies of African genomes will also help to correct injustices, he says. Estimates of genetic risk scores for people of African descent that predict, say, the likelihood of cardiomyopathies or schizophrenia can be unreliable or even misleading using tools that work well in Europeans. To address these inequities, Professor Wonkam and other scientists are talking to governments, companies and professional bodies across Africa and internationally, in order to build up capacity over the next decade to make the vision a reality. The number of 3 million is the minimum he expects to accurately map genetic variations across Africa. As a comparison, the UK Biobank currently aims to sequence 500,000 genomes in under 3 years. But the UK's 68 million population is just a fraction of Africa's 1.3 billion. Professor Wonkam says the project will take 10 years, and will cost around $450 million per year, and says industry is already showing an interest in it. Biotech firms say they welcome any expansion of the Library of African Genomes. The Center for Proteomic and Genomic Research in Cape Town works with biotech firm Artisan Biomed on a variety of diagnostic tests. The firm says it is affected by the gaps in the availability of genomic information relevant to local populations. For example, it may find a genetic mutation in someone and not know for certain if that variation is associated with a disease, especially as a marker for that particular population. The more information you have at that level, the better the diagnosis, treatment and eventually care can be for any individual, regardless of your ethnicity, says Dr. Lindsay Peterson, Chief Operations Officer. More technology of business. Artisan Biomed says the data it collects feeds back into CPGR's research, allowing them to design a better diagnostic toolkit that is better suited to African populations, for instance. Because of the limited data sets of the African genome, it needs that hand-in-hand connection with research and innovation, because without that it's just another test that has been designed for a Caucasian population that may or may not have much of an effect within the African populations, says Dr. Judith Hornby-Cuff. She says the 3MAG project would help streamline processes and improve the development of research, and perhaps one day provide cheaper, more effective and more accessible healthcare, particularly in the strained South African system. One of those hoping to take part in the 3MAG project is Dr. Aaron Abera, genomics scientist at Inkaba Biotech in Pretoria, which offers genetic sequencing and other services to research and industry. The firm employs over 100 people in South Africa, Ghana, Kenya, Mali, Nigeria, Senegal, Tanzania, Uganda and Zimbabwe. Currently, most of the genetics samples collected in these countries are still processed in South Africa, but Dr. Abera hopes to increase the number of laboratories soon. The gaps are not only in infrastructure, but also in staff. Over the last 20 years, Inkaba has focused on using staff and interns from the African continent, but it now has to expand its training program as well. Back in Cape Town, Professor Wonkam says that while the costs are huge, the project will improve capacity in a whole range of biomedical disciplines that will equip Africa to tackle public health challenges more equitably. He says, "We have to be ambitious when we are in Africa. You have so many challenges you cannot see small, you have to see big, and really big." Additional reporting by Tim Bowler.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe